Lux Occult and Unearthing Paranormalcy are part of the Green Mushroom Podcast Network.
I would like
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Lux Occult
and Unearthing Paranormalcy.
I'm Luxa.
And I'm Dave.
And we're here to introduce a very cool collaborative project we've been working on for the Green Mushroom Project. Today we're joined by Shane Thomas, who is the author of the meditation, which you will hear at the end of the show.
Hello.
How's it going, Shane?
Doing well. How about you?
Good.
Great. Hi, Dave.
Hi, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I used to write science fiction and fantasy books, and I had a podcast for indie authors about topical, sci-fi and fantasy stuff. And somewhere along the journey, I thought I was researching my next book series to write, and instead I stumbled into magic and mysticism meditation. Now I blog about my journey on buildingthephilosophers stone.wordpress.com.
That sounds like an amazing journey.
Yeah, totally. And we're going to hear more about that in a second. But first, we're going to set the table by playing a recording about the Green Mushroom Project, just to kind of give people who are not familiar a little bit of background.
3, Romeo, 2, 4, Yankee, Romeo, 7, Bravo, Delta, Quebec.
Hey, what's up? This is Luxa with an update about the Green Mushroom Project. I'm working on a sound sigil right now for the project's first birthday, and if you are willing, I would like your help. So for those who are unfamiliar, the Green Mushroom Project is a hypho sigil. Hypho means web. This is a reference to fungal mycelia, the networks that exist below the surface, often interacting with other life forms, such as plants, in a mutually beneficial way. The mycology nerds out there might already know that the family of fungi that make mushrooms are called Basidiomycota, and that these dudes often do form relationships with trees. If we, the practitioners, are the forest, then the green mushroom hypho sigil is like the mycelial network of fungi that connects us and helps nourish us. The main objectives of the project are to build and strengthen community and empower individuals within it, to maintain solidarity against hate groups misrepresenting and co-opting occult technology, and to encourage individuals to use powerful tech like the stuff that Aiden talks about in his work, hypersigils and stuff, to become more agentic so that they can make changes in their life and in the world. There's a lot of focus on self-expression and healing through creativity and art. There's also a pretty heavy focus on environmentalism and on just connecting with people. We are social animals. Even if you never talk to any of the other people participating in the project, you still know that they are out there working together to regain ground. We also do weekly chats on the Faithblind Council podcast Discord server, where people can come chill and talk about their practice and their work with the project and make dick jokes and stuff. I really think that laughter and fun are incredibly powerful and incredibly healing, so we try to cultivate that. We also light a candle at midnight Eastern Time on Fridays when we remind ourselves to resist. You can learn more about the project by checking out the show notes. There is a bunch of links about it in there. We do group remote rituals and have created an astral temple. We are currently running some fun magical experiments. It's easy to connect with the Hypho Sigils web. Just please don't use the current for anything that would be contrary to the project's aim. We did build in several countermeasures. Basically, just don't be a dick. That's all. The project will be 1 year old in October, Halloween to be exact, and we have plans to sort of take it to a new level next year by introducing some tech that we are in the process of beta testing now, which is a network of green mushroom servitors called saffrotropes. The sound sigil track that I mentioned earlier is going to be part of the initialization ritual for this network. We're hoping to collect as many intentions about how shit can get better between humans and other humans, better between humans and other species as well. And we're hoping to sort of put them into this track as a, epigenetic pool of programming that they can draw on, if that makes any sense. Anyway, if you would like to record a statement of intent for the sound sigil track, I would love to have your input. I wrote up a simple ritual to perform in order to do this, and you can find a link to that in the show notes as well. I'm going to go ahead and play a sample from what we have so far. It's kind of like a party track, since the ritual will be a birthday party. There aren't any statements of intent in it yet, but hopefully hearing some of it will inspire or encourage you to help out as we focus on the path to better times. I really want to thank everybody who's been participating in the project, no matter what that looks like for you. Much love. Or should I say, much love. Cheers. So let's talk a little bit about the meditation and our collaborative process making it. First, Dave, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Dave. I'm a druid, an apprentice in the Ancient Order of Druids in America. I speak only for myself and not the order or members of that order from all over the world. I practice druid ritual magic, hedge druidry, natural magic, and here lately, chaos magic. I study occultism, including esotericism, Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, mythology, legend, lore, and spiritual past from all cultures over the course of time. Comparative mythology and religion is one of my top interests, in addition to digging into the origins of unexplained phenomena. My druidry can best be explained as a philosophy, lifestyle, and practice that has incorporated in itself an emphasis on knowledge and science married with magic and spirituality, remembering always that humans are a part of nature and not outside of it. I'm a member and contributor to the Green Mushroom Project, which Luxa has already graciously told you all about. I'm also a member of the Green Mushroom Podcast Network, where I co-host Unearthing Paranormalcy, the podcast that digs into the paranormal and tries to find normalcy in the topic.
And which you are maybe currently listening to right now, depending on which RSS feed you're on.
Absolutely. And if you're not, I invite you to come listen to our spooky stories, kooky theories, and inappropriate humor on your favorite podcasting app. And then conduct your own explorations into how the world is infinitely more mysterious, more fascinating, and more alive than what most of humanity has acknowledged so far.
All right, hell yeah. So, Shane, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your Queria path.
Just like Dave said, I'm just starting off on Queria. It is a self-study program. I'm not on their student council, so I can't speak for the school, but I like to say nice things about it. to begin with, like I had mentioned before, I was just writing science fiction and fantasy books, and I was getting a bit metafiction. And by that, I mean I was writing a story about a guy very similar to myself who had a conspiracy theory blog and discovered that a lot of the cryptids and weird goings on and conspiracies that he was investigating were real. And he kind of tumbled into this underworld that had been previously unknown. And I started my own conspiracy theory blog with a YouTube station and some blog articles on my author webpage. One of the things that I covered was Dr. Dean Radin's book, Real Magic. And I did some of the experiments in that book. And one of them was the remote viewing experiment. And I think I did a sigil spell and affirmations out of that book. And I think I started myself on a path that ended me up pursuing magic. A couple months went by, and I finished some book projects, and I wrapped up my first series, The Anki Legacies. Thought I was researching my second book series, which had to do with an end-of-the-world scenario, like an apocalypse type of thing, and university students discovering that magic was becoming awakened again on Earth. And so I started really digging into esoteric stuff to for what I thought was book research to write fiction. And then about 10 books in, I realized that what I was doing was actually discovering that magic was real and people do practice it and it gets results. And the stuff in Radin's book, Real Magic, was just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And then somewhere around speculating the age of the pyramids and the Sphinx, I just kind of fell in all the way and decided to stop writing fiction altogether and focus completely on this journey here. So then I was doing some introduction, like Golden Dawn type of stuff, or self-initiation into Golden Dawn out of a book. I did that for a couple months and learned like banishing rituals and things like that. And then I went on to find Jason Louv's Adept Initiative course that taught me some chaos magic basics and helped prime my lifestyle for magical training with stuff like Raja Yoga and something that became kind of the focal point of this guided meditation, which is Franz Barton's Black Mirror, White Mirror exercise. I completed his course, which I think was great for anyone that might be interested in starting on a magical path and not really knowing if they were ready to take it on. It definitely helps you align your lifestyle for this kind of training and study. But one thing I wanted that I wasn't sure I could find was a course that runs you all the way through to the higher levels of training. Not that I am guaranteed to ever get there, of course. You never know more than a step or two beyond what you're doing. But Chorea was something that really called to me. It's a free online school, Chorea.com. And all the materials from the beginning until the end are on there. And in all my studies in ancient Egypt and kind of near-death experiences, something that really jumped out to me was something that's known as justification. It's kind of at the end of a lot of religions and mystical experiences. And what that concept is it is a practice in your life that prepares you to, when you die, to be ready to make a choice about how you reincarnate or whether you can do other things in other astral realms and afterlives. So that's been a big fixation for me, and especially as I'm getting more into this path. Chorea talks about that on the outset, as like everyone, I flipped right to the end of the lectures and read the kind of last couple of pages and confirmed that this path toward justification, this Chorea program, which will probably take me at least 10 years if I can get all the way through it, it does prepare you for this correctly progressing through afterlife experiences. So yeah, I practice Chorea now. It is a fairly comprehensive magical program with several core skills. It covers meditation and vision, or astral projection, or the imaginal world, ritual magic, magical cleansing and protection, divination, astrology, and using your inner senses. One thing that kind of separates Chorea from some of the other magical practices that I've encountered is that instead of a focal point of self-improvement, Korea focuses on service to others and to nature. So that really called to me as well.
Okay, hell yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up Dean Braden's work, because I think that that's been important for a lot of people as an entryway. And I think that I've bought that book for several people saying, here, this is this is a set of, language that you can understand, a perspective that might make sense to you about like how to get into this stuff. And so I think that's very cool.
Yeah, it was definitely approachable as an outsider, that's for sure. I might not have picked up some of the things that I enjoy reading more now. I know if I had seen, Korea or even Jason Louv's course before I had read that book, it probably would have just not even, it would have been invisible to me, or I would have not thought anything of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do want to note too that some of the experiments that we're doing in the Astral Temple for the Green Mushroom Project are kind of similar to these kind of, parapsychology experiments that he talks about in Real Magic, which is a very interesting book. I would recommend people check it out if you're into it. I'm actually thinking now about the sigil that's in that book and wondering if that might be part of what the intention of the book is. Like you just mentioned, the fact that, all of a sudden you could see something that you didn't see before after you read it. So that's kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll try to ask him one day, but yes.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to interview him, that would be cool to find out. One experience I had while I was listening to that on audiobook, I stayed at a hotel and I really didn't have any like meditative experience or anything, but he mentioned finding your life's purpose. I don't know if he called it Holy Guardian Angel or what exactly he pointed it out, but he mentioned that a lot of practices did that. And I was practicing intermittent fasting at the time, and I had been about 48 hours since I was, since I had stopped eating. So that can tend to have some pretty interesting mental effects. And I figured it would be a great kind of launch point for me to just lay down on the bed in the hotel room. I wanted to find like what my life purpose was or whatever, kind of inspired by this book. The only breathing techniques I knew how to do at the time were the Wim Hof method, which is a bit of a controlled hyperventilation. So I did that paired with what I would later learn as box breaths. And for several hours I did this, and I just, for one, it put me into a state of euphoria, which lasted about 3 days. But for two, I left that experience knowing that I wanted to be helpful and having absolutely no idea what I was supposed to be helpful with. So I just started with like easy stuff. Like I started that podcast with a writing colleague of mine, helping promote other indie authors. And then I was just as helpful as possible with my wife around the house. And then later it turned into a bit more of a focused thing where I feel like Korea is really helping me kind of reach that pinnacle of how exactly to be helpful.
Oh yeah. Well, that's very cool.
Okay, Luxa, you want to introduce yourself now to people who might not know you?
Yeah, sure. I'm Lux Estrada. I'm the host of the Lux Occult Podcast. I'm also a co-host of Ad Hoc History and Smutsup. My kind of deal right now is that I'm very into finding the sort of like intersections between things like my practice, things like science, sexuality, philosophy. I think that, it's all part of like one big system. And so I'm really interested in looking at the way that things interact and interplay. In terms of my own practice, I would say that it's probably most easy to contextualize it as chaos magic, playing with some concepts from maybe what you consider like traditional witchcraft. Most of it's just weird shit that I made up myself along the way. But I'm really getting into like deity worship right now, which is something that I hadn't really like had a very strong relationship before. The concept of like, working with a personified force rather than like a very abstract one. I still see it as pretty abstract, but I think I'm getting closer to, getting to that place. There's some people where they really have this like personal relationship with this personified deity that is very real. And that was something that I always was curious about, that experience, but I just never was able to get there. So just kind of like working with that and working with the concept of like, the divine feminine and like, what does that mean in terms of my own gender and stuff, which I've always felt a little bit of like confusion surrounding, but mostly that's because like our society is super demented when it comes to a lot of that stuff, in my opinion. And so it's all like super confusing, at least to me. So yeah, all kinds of stuff going on there. My focus is usually primarily like, or at least the vehicle is usually some kind of a creative one, though. I've been working on making music tracks. I do a lot of visual art, and I write shitty poetry too sometimes, as well as other bullshit. So yes, that is me.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the meditation. The meditation that we're going to be presenting here pretty soon takes place in the Green Mushroom Astral Temple in a feature that we discovered there, which is this pool that's in the kind of like underground area of the temple. So the way that we did this was that Shane was nice enough to write it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like that process for you?
Sure. Yeah, it was a bit of a compulsion. I've been trying to ignore writings to focus on my journey and studying and everything else. The whole reason I have a blog is I actually felt like, the energy of the four directions, to me, the East represents giving. And part of what I need to give is to share my experience going from kind of a normal dude into this other world. I don't know who I'm talking to yet or or what. I when you write fiction, you start off with your audience, your ideal reader, and kind of work from there. But with this blog and I guess not so much with this meditation, because it was pretty clear that I was writing for other people that were interested in the Green Mushroom Project. But for now, writing in general, I just feel the need to write from time to time, and I have a couple pieces and I try to ignore them for as long as I can, but I don't know. You're artistic, Lexa, so you probably feel this sometimes where you just can't ignore a project.
Oh, yeah. No, dude, I'm like at the mercy of my creative urges. Yes.
Yeah. So when we started talking about the well, I'd had experiences based on the and if anyone hasn't listened to the other episode where Lexa and Dave and was it Joy? Who else was on that one?
I think Arspex was there too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where you guys talked about and walked through the green mushroom. Before you do this meditation here, I would definitely put this on pause and go back and do that other one first to just kind of familiarize yourself with the space. Well, the well is mentioned in that space, and it kind of took on a life of its own for me, and I felt drawn to it. And then I think Dave or Luxa had mentioned in the server that they were going to be doing a project and kind of working on and exploring that, and I just jumped right in. And when we started talking about it, I just needed to write this piece. So it kind of took up, it redirected my energy that week.
Hell yeah. Very cool. So once we had that copy, Dave, you guys recorded it together, you and Amy, and there were other people too, right? Was Chad there?
Yeah, Chad was there, but it was just us three.
Okay.
We are phenomenal voice actors.
I love the voices that you guys do on your show. It's fantastic. So yeah, and so after I had after Dave was done recording it, he sent it over to me, and I did the production and sound design for it. We got some, background music and some kind of light sound effects and stuff in there just to set the atmosphere, and I just did that on Audacity using stuff from the public domain. So yeah, we hope that you enjoy it. One of the things that has really been interesting about this pool is just sort of like the kind of universal like imagery that comes along with the idea of a pool, especially like an underground pool sort of. I know Dave's been doing a lot of like interesting work there and research into where this comes up in different places in mythology. Are you willing to talk a little bit about that, Dave?
Yeah, I can. I don't want to get too into it. I mean, because it's a lot. I wrote a lot, and we could be here for hours with me talking about it. So I'll just kind of say that, like, for me, the underground pool is kind of just always been there. Much like the Cauldron of Caradwyn, the keeper of inspiration and the mother of poetry in the Welsh medieval legends. Or the infinitesimal point of the Atman in Indian mythology that gathers around itself as the root material and a root efficient cause to manifest its own being. Or even the concept of the consorting of order and chaos, typically seen as saltwater and freshwater, seen all across the most ancient of myths, among other things. I like to think the bubbles of inspiration float from the underground pool connected to Anun, the mineral realm, the reservoir of unformed soul stuff, which gave us the drive to create this project, this space, these guides, which is all connected to the great soil web of life. And we've been working with the pool and sharing some insights and techniques that will be releasing to everybody. I got it all on a drive, and I'll get it all organized out. And this guided meditation functions in one way as an introduction to connecting to the underground pool in the mycelium network. In another way, to gain understanding of the importance of both light and darkness within ourselves and in others, and in ways we have not uncovered yet. From this point, working through the exercises and utilizing the techniques, it can fold into a process of discovery of the individual self in all its aspects by forging a connection between chthonic deities, powers, spirits, entities, archetypes, and so on. Gaining a deeper understanding of the self by doing what's been termed shadow work. Then through the combined infusion of above and below, the two can be merged together into one, which increases an individual's consciousness. With greater consciousness, individuals can heal the splits in their mind between what's conscious and unconscious, bringing them to wholeness in their psyche. And I'm really looking forward to what others discover, not only about themselves, but other innovative techniques and creative functions of this underground pool in the mycelium network.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the idea of the network too. I think that one thing that I've noticed about the project, I'm starting to notice about the project, which is definitely one of our goals setting out, was that people are starting to do these really amazing things, and not necessarily like having to do directly like with the project, but like this sort of idea of gaining agency and, taking action in the world and stuff. And I think it's really exciting. I'm not trying to say that we're taking credit for that or anything, but like just having that intention, setting out and seeing it happen. Who cares why it's happening? I'm just happy, right? Like,
oh, absolutely. There's like a current that's moving right now, because I also know of not just one, but two spiritual alchemy orders that are starting back up after being defunct and vacant for like decades.
That's cool.
Definitely something going on, like, I guess, in the greater occultic rifts of the world, where everybody's kind of driving towards this.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. It seems like there's something going on to me too, for sure.
I got pulled into something, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share, Shane, that about the piece or anything that I didn't ask you about or anything?
I do, yeah, if you don't mind.
Please.
So the energies that we're kind of invoking and asking the listener to encounter, that's a thought very much derivative of Franz Barton's initiation into Hermetics. It's one of the early exercises in that program. And if you're interested, I would highly recommend going through the exercise in its original form, or you can just do this guided meditation a shitload or some combination of the two. I went through it the original way and still find a lot of growth and benefit by doing this guided meditation. And one thing that's nice is you get to practice your vision or your astral projection, or however you like to term it, your imaginal adventuring. Another thing I wanted to say was the contacts at each of the directions. I know for different practices, people may envision what their contact might look like, or not want to personify the powers. And to me, well, first off, I think even though I didn't put anything directly from Korea into this piece, it's hard to escape its influence on my mind, because I've just been so immersed in the study for since November or so. For quite a while, 7 or 8 months, I've been just immersed in Korea, so I'm sure a lot of it bled through into this piece. And what these contacts are to me, the text, especially early on, leaves it very vague. It's not like when you're practicing a Golden Dawn style practice and you know what the archangel is wearing and what his name is, and the color of his robe and the trim of his robe and what he's holding. At this stage of my practice, they're just inner contacts, and it's Josephine McCarthy's attempt to help you separate from a lot of these older ideas and to just make your own impression of what's there. So I want to encourage the listener, you can either think of them as you've always thought of them, or just allow what they feel like to you to come. And you'll note that each one of them seems kind of, hot then cold. And what these contacts are doing is priming you to help you have the correct experience and dredge up the proper memory. So it's more like them acting in order to set you up to make your proper totem, and that'll be explained in the meditation. So I guess I just wanted to say that bit in defense of these contacts. They're not mean dicks.
Sure, and I think that it's important too to note that, like, with any of these practices, this is my opinion, but I think it's okay to, approach it in the way that makes the most sense to you. So if there's something in there that doesn't, track with what your vision is, then you can just change it to what would track. None of this stuff is meant to be restrictive or prescriptive per se.
Absolutely. Yep.
I couldn't agree more. I think that symbols that come from the practitioner themselves are the most evocative and the most powerful.
And with our gift experiments, we've really been learning that what you leave someone may not be what they find, but it could be, thematic.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. And if people are interested in hearing short discussions about the experiments we've been running in the Astral Temple, definitely check out the Lux Occult YouTube channel, where there are some videos of those that you can hear. It's been very interesting. All right, so what else, guys? Have we missed anything? Does that cover everything we think that the listener will need to enjoy this meditation as much as possible?
Well, Lexa, I want to thank you for having the Green Mushroom Project. This has been such a great experience to kind of take part in a community, practice some of my core skills that I need to work on anyhow, and be a part of something that represents all my values and doesn't really put me in a place where I feel like I'm at risk for anything. It's just safe place to be around fellow practitioners and enjoy the time.
Well, yeah, I'm so glad that you found us and that you're part of the project, and yeah, I appreciate the work that you've put in too. I think that people are really going to enjoy this one. I know that I liked it a lot. So, and I'm looking forward to collecting more totems and decorating my personal part of the mushroom with them, which is what I've been doing. So.
Yeah, my little mini mushroom is getting quite cluttered.
And I appreciate y'all's work on this whole project. And if you're also looking for a safe space like Shane described, come join the Faith Blind Council Discord server. It's where all us green mushroomists hang out.
It's a fun place.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And yeah, I appreciate everybody's hard work on it. Dave, obviously you've been with the project for so long, pretty much from probably before we even started it, I think, right? So yes, I appreciate all of it. Let's talk real quick about the Green Mushroom Podcast Network. We already mentioned the Faith Blind Council podcast, which is a great show that you can learn all kinds of great practical techniques about chaos magic and theory. They also talk about the different paradigms. So if you're interested in things like Tantra or folk magic, I know they've covered a lot of other ones too, or, just kind of deep dives into techniques like divination. That's a really good place to get that. Dave already talked about Unearthing Paranormalcy, which I super enjoy listening to. We've got Ad Hoc History, which is a show that I make with my brother Asher, where we kind of get into these epic tales from history and kind of think about what it must have been like from the point of view of these people, instead of really trying to empathize and personify history and kind of try to figure out the motivations that might lie behind what happened and stuff. It's been a fun time. And we also have Administrism, which is Frater Yara and Zarina's show, and they are talking about a new paradigm that they're developing which is a focus on magic and occultism partnered with environmentalism and, responsible land use in a way that is congruent with what the people that lived in the land knew about it and did before, all of the shitty colonization things that happened. What else? We have Smutsup Podcast, which is the sex-positive comedy show that your parents forgot to warn you about. It's incredibly cringy, so if you're a horny nerd and you like outdated references, definitely check that out. And of course, we've got Lux Occult, which is a podcast that I make about occultism, exploring the intersections of science, art, magic, philosophy, through the lens of chaos magic. I have great conversations with really interesting guests, and we talk about all kinds of different topics. So definitely check that out too. And of course, you already heard earlier about Unearthing Paranormalcy, the podcast that digs into the paranormal and tries to find normalcy in the topics. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate both of you taking the time to set the table for this meditation. Super cool to hear a little bit more about Korea and where you're coming from, Shane. Really interesting stuff for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Do you have any advice for people listening who are maybe new or maybe not so new to the practice? Everybody can learn things from each other, right?
Yeah, gosh. Actually, I did think of something. Some folks, when they kind of approach the Green Mushroom Project, I've noticed they're worried that they might not have visualization skills. The name for it is escaping me. It starts with an A.
Oh, aphantasia?
Thank you. Yeah, and in one of the introductory Korea models in Module 1, Josephine talks about inner senses and describes not just inner sight, but inner hearing, inner touch, and inner knowing. Anyone that thinks that they might not have an inner vision sense, they might be really benefited by reading through that part of the lesson, even if Korea is not a path for them, simply to have the ability to explore other senses when they approach something like astral projection or visionary work. For my part, I don't really see with my eyes closed. It's more of a like when you get up to use the restroom and you're sleeping and you just kind of know how not to stub your toe and you know where the coffee table is. It's moving about a space more like that for me than it is actually seeing things. So not to discount a medical condition that is real and people do have it, but some folks that maybe aren't sure could get a lot more out of a practice like this if they understood some of the other talents they may have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point too. And that's actually something that Aidan Wachter and I just talked about on an episode of Lux Occult called Visualization Demystified and Reimagining Imagination Magic. So yeah, if this is something,
the new one?
Yeah, it just came out.
Sweet.
So if this is something that's tripping you up in your practice, or that is limiting your thinking in terms of what you think is approachable to you, I think that Aidan definitely offers some really good context about how to sort of or maybe redefine what some of these terms mean. And so yeah, I would definitely check that out if you're having a stumbling block with any of that stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it was such I probably would have gotten involved in that sort of work far, far before I knew about magic if I had known these other ways of experience. And, I had imagined and written 5 science fiction and fantasy novels. I definitely had the mental space, but I just didn't see in pictures, so I thought I couldn't astral project. And that simply wasn't the case.
Yeah, definitely. It's just that term astral project, and then we think that there's a certain defined thing that fits along with it, when really all of our experiences are really so individual.
Right. So. And yeah, great on the people that really do have video game ability with their eyes closed, but I think most of us fall a little closer to what I described before.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, whatever you got going on, you can make it work for you, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Dave? Do you have any words of advice for people listening?
Inner work unfolds into something less threatening when we begin to see that every expression of the unconscious and chthonic currents flows from the same reservoir deep within, and that everything works together in the great pattern of all things.
All right, fuck yeah. I agree.
It's beautiful, Dave.
Yeah. All right, and I do have a little advice too, which is this, like, remember that nobody can validate your own experiences for you. So rely on yourself as the primary authority when it comes to your own practice. I would obviously encourage people to practice safely here, but there's no substitute for actually trying something for yourself to see if it works for you. I would also encourage people to try not to get too hung up on semantic definitions, as I mentioned, when it comes to like esoteric concepts like astral projection or whatever, especially in the case where this causes one to question if they were doing something, quote, right, especially if they like read about it in a book, you know. So if it's working for you, then congratulations, you're doing it right, you know. And if it's not working, I mean, you can keep trying it different ways, like keep, you know, tweaking it, perfecting it, and if it's just not working, then you can try something else, right? There's nothing wrong with something not working out for you. That's how you find when it's time to move to the next thing or whatever. So give yourself permission to be in charge of your own practice by relying on your own authority when you contextualize yourself within it.
Cool.
That is really good advice.
It took me a long time to figure it out, but I feel like it's super basic too. Like, but yeah, hell yeah, thank you. Oh, I also wanted to mention that the meditation concludes with a track written for the Green Mushroom Project by the very talented Q Varro, and you can check out all of Q's stuff on Bandcamp. There'll be a link to that, as well as all of the other stuff that we've talked about in the show notes for this episode. So before we get into this meditation here, guys, how would you all feel about saying the statement of resistance for the green mushroom and lighting the candle with the green mushroom sigil, as we like to do?
All right, let's light it up.
All right. Resist.
Resist
By maintaining sovereignty of the self. Resist by maintaining love of the self. Resist by maintaining fierce loyalty to love and pleasure. Resist with acts of radical kindness. Focus on the path to better times. All right, fuck yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to have this conversation, and I hope everybody listening enjoys this very dope meditation.
Awesome, it was a lot of fun.
And until next time, keep digging.
And stay curious.
Light a candle and take your meditation pose. Imagine or look at the hypho sigil for the green mushroom while you relax into your pose. Breathe in through your nose, allowing your back to straighten. Exhale through your mouth and relax every muscle in your body. Continue to take deep, slow breaths for a moment and identify any points of tension or discomfort. Let your attention move to the tense spots and simply breathe there until they dissipate. The tension is a thin mist evaporating in the morning sun of this imaginal space. Take time and allow yourself to lose track of your physical body while you breathe. The hypho sigil of the green mushroom is in this imaginal space, just out of sight. It calls for you. There is something different about the pool than you've felt in your other treks into the shared space. Somehow you know that you have work to confront today. You rise from your physical body and begin walking down a forested path. The smell of fresh rain rejuvenates you, and looking through the canopy to see sunlight dapple the undergrowth brings a smile to your face. Out of the corner of your eye, you think you see small, luminescent beings. But then look directly, and there's nothing there. You wonder if your eyes are playing tricks on you. Ferns gently brush against your shins as you make your way down the path. You look straight ahead once again and gasp. The hypho sigil is on the door right in front of you, no more than a stone's throw away. You have entered a clearing, and the green mushrooms shade you from the midday shine. The stalk alone is the size of a home, and the cap above creates an eave that feels like a wraparound porch. Your smile breaks wider into a grin, ready to discover what it is that has called you back here today. As you approach, the door adorned with the hypho sigil opens inward. You cross the threshold. The presence of the guardian fills the vestibule. Nothing harboring hostility would get past. You feel the momentary scrutiny as your intention is judged. Then you feel welcome. The feeling is a signal from the guardian, and is so strong you seem to glide past the mushroom's protector right into the tavern. A room this comfortable begs for mingling. You sense a few familiar presences unwinding at the tables. Someone smiles from the end of the bar. You scan the room, thinking to find a seat, but a glint of light from the altar tucked off to one side of the room beckons. A few pleasantries are exchanged while crossing the space. Standing before the altar, you see that the object is a hand mirror. Then you are holding it and gazing at your reflection before you were even aware of picking it up. It shows your best, most cheerful self. There are no imperfections or signs of fatigue. Even the room behind you is brighter. The decor is more playful and lighter. A knowing from deep within you bubbles to your awareness. You must also face what is on the back. First you try to deny the urge, to gaze upon your ideal self a bit longer. But that part of you that knows to rotate the mirror also knows that what you will see is the very work you must face today while on this journey. As if of its own accord, your other hand grasps and rotates the mirror's handle. You hear yourself gasp even as you begin to process how your image has changed. Your eyes have sunken in dark sockets, as if sleep hasn't come easy for uncounted days. Instead of pity or shock, the face reflects a look of tense resentment. It seems to sneer at the more refreshed and relaxed version of itself holding the mirror. The drab room behind that face has been neglected and looks filthy. You break your gaze and shake off the eerie feeling with a sigh. Perhaps the bartender will lighten your mood. You approach your usual stool, hoping for cheer, but then he looks at what is in your hand and shakes his head, then jerks a thumb over to the lift. With a shrug of your shoulders, you accept that there will be no break at the watering hole before facing tonight's part of your great work. You approach the lift that you normally ride up to your private chamber and the shared ritual space at the center of the dome, but then notice a tunnel entry tucked into the wall on the far side. The mirror feels like it's pulling you. Of course I'm bound for the tunnels, you mumble as you begin to crawl in. It's a small space. The living walls of the green mushrooms mycorrhizal network press you from either side. The entry and some parts of the passage are large enough for you to crawl on hands and knees. Claustrophobia isn't a problem here. Even if the fear arose, contact with the soft, fleshy walls strips negative energy from you like a sponge. Any rough encounters you recently had, errant lingering anxiety from life in the modern world, all your doubts, and any fear sloughs off. You press down on your belly and slither through the narrowest portion. Then your head and hands breach through, into the cavern down in the depths below the mushroom. In the very heart of the mycorrhizal network, you feel renewed, refreshed, and optimistic. You are a serpent whose molted skin was every harm it carried within its body. Reborn, you stand and stretch, enjoying the open space. The smell of fresh soil fills the cavern. You are standing at the edge of a well, which bubbles from a spring deeper within the womb of the earth. The stone walls reflect light from an unknown source. Is it coming from within the well itself? You peer in. Within the well, you see the ritual space from the dome of the mushroom. Your hand stretches out in front of you, and you gently release your grip on the mirror. Had it been in your hand this whole time? The mirror disappears below the water's surface and within the well. You see the mushroom mandala that is the floor of the shared ritual space. Then you are looking at your own reflection. Not the ideal or the tense, exhausted version, but the regular you. You, in your imaginal body, stand in the cavern below while the reflection is standing in the shared ritual space above.
It's magic.
Your reflection gives you a wink.
We can be anywhere at once.
You nod in affirmation, trying to wrap your head around the notion.
Let's talk about the great work you're going to do right now.
Your reflection walks to the altar in the east. It is adorned with a yellow cloth and a sword.
This is the threshold for your power of thought, among other things.
Your reflection walks clockwise and gestures at the altar in the south. A wand rests upon a red tablecloth.
This is the threshold for the power of passion.
Then your reflection is passing the west altar, adorned with a blue cloth and a chalice.
This is the threshold for the power of intuition.
Your reflection walks to the north altar, adorned with an olive green cloth and a large silver coin.
This is the threshold for the power of sensation.
Your reflection moves to the center of the ritual space and holds their hands flat, palms up. 4 orbs are in each hand. The orbs glow with the colors of the 4 directional powers.
Humans are the bridge for these powers, not a part of you, but forces that pass through you to enter the physical world. Your role is to choose whether the power will be a benefit or a detriment to the world. You choose with your actions as the power passes through. It is time for you to reflect upon the powers you have already bridged into the world. This great work of reflection will enable you to make conscious choices of how that power manifests the next time it moves through you. You will work at each altar to take a good and bad memory and form them into a totem. The totem can be a little statue, a trinket, a small animal, or anything you wish, so long as it reminds you of the memory it's attached to.
How will I work the altars from the cavern? You ask your reflection. Your reflection claps, causing you to blink. You open your eyes and you are in the altar space. You are looking up through the translucent green ceiling, and you see your reflection smirking at you from the cavern, then giving you a wink. Then your reflection disappears completely, as a gentle breeze pushes clouds that glow yellow with the light of the moon. Movement in front of you catches your eye. Someone is standing before you, adorned in yellow. They flash a smile. They are familiar to you, even if you don't recognize their outward appearance. They are your inner contact from the east. Something deep within knows that. There are open scrolls and books piled up in a corner where your contact is writing. You look and see a sigil on an otherwise blank page.
I know you'll create something beautiful.
Your contact tells you. It isn't a spoken word. You simply hear their thought in your mind. You raise an eyebrow and look at the empty half of the altar.
You need only concern yourself with one creation at a time. I will tell you 4 human traits. You must relate a personal experience of their energy as it flowed through your life, then embody it in a totem.
You nod. A little mascot from a list of feelings? Easy enough.
Cheerful, diligent, hardworking, independent.
To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. Your east contact gestures to the center of the ritual chamber at a disc, suspended waist high and glowing with white light. You walk to the center of the room, the cross section of the 4 altars. You set the totem upon it, and the disc sinks to knee height. You notice another disc, steeped in shadow, as it rises to your eye line. Then an opaque outline of a scale balancing the 2 discs becomes visible, just for a moment. Darkness falls over the entire ritual chamber. You look up to see heavy clouds, as dark as coal, smothering the night sky outside the translucent dome. Still looking up, you stumble away from the discs, the scale. The atmosphere around you feels heavier, thicker. Then you bump into something behind you. Your eastern contact scoffs loudly and papers rustle. You turn and they scowl at you, then brush the altar clear and gaze off into the distance with a cool expression. You'll notice their robe is now embroidered with intricate symbols in deep purple. Their arms are crossed over their chest, and their chin is stuck out. There is a quick nod of the head toward the altar.
Dishonest, boastful, easily offended, superficial.
You feel a pit form in your stomach as the image of this totem forms, and you set about your task. Take the time you need to create this totem. Just pause the recording. You set this totem on the dark disc and the scale balances. Both totems emit a faint yellow glow. You feel the same energy pulsing in them. The ritual space grows brighter and you look up. The clouds are retreating to reveal Aurora in beautiful waves of red across the sky. Aurora Australis. The thought appears in your mind. You look south and a vibrant contact's enthusiastic greeting makes you grin. It's a feeling akin to deja vu, to look upon your inner contact for fire. They gesture to the altar between you both. They are shaping something in the flame of a small pyre.
Courage, determination, creativity, passion.
You feel the urge to create something bold, even as the recollection begins to replay in your mind. To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. You admire the totem as you place it upon the light disc. Thunder rumbles even as the light disc begins to sink to knee-height. You glance about, but the ritual space has suddenly grown dark. You cry out in surprise. Then a flash of lightning gives a snapshot of your southern contact glaring at you, upset by your outburst, and then smashing their sculpture of flame into bits that smolder on the surface of the altar. You approach with hesitation, knowing that your great work entails confrontation.
Jealousy, impatience, quick temper, hate.
The cracks of thunder and flashes of lightning continue while you work. To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. Your face flushes and you glance away from the token, but you know there is strength in seeing your whole self, and you place it upon the dark disc to balance the scale. The two tokens you created on the southern altar glow red. A gentle rain breaks the storm. The light sound of a dim illumination through the drizzle comforts nerves frayed by your last totem. Your water contact, garbed in several shades of blue, steps around the western altar and envelops you in an embrace. The last of your tension fades. You realize your jaw was clenched only as it slackens and you smile. They steal a quick glance at the two totems on the dark disc, but you feel only compassion and forgiveness emanating from them. With an arm wrapped around you, they guide you to the western altar and push aside their own work to give you space.
Tranquility, humility, contentment, and mercy.
You sigh and a pleasant memory bubbles into your recollection. To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. There is hesitation in your steps to the scale. You look fondly at the light totem from the west before setting it in place. Then you brace yourself. The pounding sound of a torrential downpour is immediately upon you. You find yourself crouching, afraid the dome above you will buckle under the sudden pressure of so much water. You hurry back to the west altar, eager to be near a potential source of shelter. Your inner contact for water seems indifferent to the storm, and to your presence for that matter. You can tell there is an urgent plea in your expression as you ask, "What are the traits?" After a roll of their eyes, they walk away, disappearing in mist beyond the altar.
Disinterest, arrogance, inconsistency, laziness.
To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. You rush the totem into its place, still unsure if the dome can support the deluge. Once again, the scales balance. Both western totems glow a soft blue. The stone walls of the cavern begin to rematerialize. Your breath slows. You unclench your fists. Now the cavern feels warm and welcoming. For the first time in this adventure, you notice the trees encircling the ritual space.
You're right on time.
A jovial voice calls within your mind. You look to the north and see someone you swear is related to you. Possibly a great-grandparent sibling you recognize from an old photo in a yellowing album. They must have been waiting for you here a long time, but they look like they will endure forever. They are sculpting something of granite, but place down the chisel and sweep pebbles off your side of the altar.
Responsibility, loyalty, punctuality, perseverance.
To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. Placing this totem on the scale tips it down a bit further than the others did. The novelty is just enough of a distraction. Rumbling makes you jump a bit, but it isn't thunder this time. The floor is shaking and the walls crack, spraying rubble across the floor. The south wall has collapsed and presses bare earth toward you. You stumble back into the north altar. The room is caved in, and it feels a bit claustrophobic in the tight space. Your ancestor lumbers from the darkness beyond the altar and assesses the ritual space and you with a bored expression.
I guess I should have prevented that.
They give a half-hearted shrug.
Unreliability, inconsistency, being dull, tardiness.
To take the time you need to create this totem, just pause the recording. You clamber over the rubble and place the final totem on the dark side of the scale. Both northern totems glow in olive green. The glow of all 8 totems ignites into a column of cool flame. It engulfs you in a refreshing burst. You close your inner eye to bask in its energies and to let your mind settle after achieving today's great work. a voice from the void speaks.
You have seen the power that manifests through your thinking self, your passionate self, your feeling self, your sensory self. The passions you feel are energy you have channeled into light and into darkness. Use this understanding to bridge the power into what best serves you and the world.
You open your inner eye. The 8 totems are in an open satchel at your feet. You are standing in front of the well. In it is your reflection, also in the cavern, which smiles at you and says,
Come back as many times as it serves you. There are many more totems you could harvest from the light and the dark mirror within.
You cinch the satchel closed and climb up into the tunnel that leads to your own miniature mushroom. Then you carefully arrange each totem around the space in their proper direction and with its opposing mate. You take some time to reflect on each one and the way the experience they represent makes you feel. Then, when you are ready, return to your physical body and blow out the candle.
Lux Occult and Unearthing Paranormalcy are part of the Green Mushroom Podcast Network. To hear more great independent productions like the one you just listened to, visit our network at tgmpn.com.